The night I was supposed to meet his parents, Leonard disappeared. He ignored all my calls. Yet in the early hours of the morning, I saw a video posted by Leonard's stepsister Zoe. Not feeling well with my heart today, but luckily my brother made me fish soup. My brother watched the fireworks with me, so beautiful. Her camera lens swept over the rich, milky fish soup in the insulated container on the table, fireworks blooming outside the window. Finally, it settled on the hospital bedsheets. On the man's well-defined hand holding the girl's slender wrist, Leonard's hand. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now the story begins. Leonard paused as he entered the door, frowning and waving his hand. His voice was cold, completely unlike the gentle voice calling Zoe in the video. Olivia, you promised me you wouldn't smoke. I watched the smoke curling around my fingertips. You know, promises are meant to be kept. Leonard was taken aback, and by the look on his face, he had just remembered today's matter. Leonard and I come from vastly different backgrounds. For this, I spent countless efforts to finally persuade my parents to accept Leonard. Leonard, however, always refused to meet my family. This time he finally relented, and I was so happy I felt like setting off fireworks all over the city. But after countless calls I made to Leonard went unanswered. I had no choice but to tell my mother the same excuse I had made up many times before. Mother listened quietly. She didn't expose me, just sighed and said, Olivia, is it worth it? Is it worth it? I don't know. Leonard softened his tone a bit, speaking somewhat stiffly. Olivia, it was my fault today. We can visit your parents another time. I remained silent. Leonard had grown accustomed to my endless tolerance. This it was my fault was, in his eyes, already a major concession to me. Seeing that I remained silent, he wearily rubbed the space between his brows, a hint of impatience creeping into his tone. You know very well about Zoe's condition. Can you stop making a fuss? I let out an "oh" and said, so it's a case of care brings chaos. Leonard pressed his thin lips together, suppressing his anger. I've told you many times, even if I'm not related to Zoe by blood, I'm her only family now. Can you stop being so disgusting? Olivia, not everyone is like you. Unable to live without a man, the ash fell halfway onto my fingertip, but I couldn't feel the burn. I just felt a faint ringing in my ears. I slowly lifted my head and looked at him. What did you say? I fell in love with Leonard at first sight. My family background gave me the freedom to do as I pleased. I grew up surrounded by luxury, casually reading art history and indulging in extreme sports both at home and abroad. After graduation, I followed my family's arrangement to enter into a marriage alliance, planning to live that way for the rest of my life. I didn't think there was anything wrong with it, until I met Leonard. Leonard is the famously unattainable beauty of the art academy, handsome, brilliant, and ice-cold in demeanor. He has only one sickly younger sister left in his family. I can't quite explain what makes him so special, but every time I see him, it feels like countless butterflies are fluttering in my stomach. I pursued him seriously for a year. I stopped doing extreme sports because I started to fear death. I changed my major and requested an internship at the family company. After learning about Leonard's family background, I wanted to give him a secure future, just to have more contact with him. I specifically applied for a job at the coffee shop where he worked part-time. Unfortunately, having never done any housework since childhood, I was all thumbs on the first day and even burned my hand. Leonard tacitly allowed me to get close to him, but ever since I started pursuing him, his only response to my confessions has been cold rejection. That day, seeing me in such a miserable state, gasping in pain, he surprisingly brought out the burn ointment and applied it for me. He knelt on one knee beside my feet, his long, cool fingers gently spreading the ointment. As he applied it, he suddenly muttered, "Don't come anymore," after a year of chasing with no response. Even my best friend Paula teased that Miss Wen had finally hit a wall this time. I was a bit discouraged, so I simply gave up and stared at the crown of his head, saying in a sulky tone, "If you agree to be my boyfriend, I won't come again." Actually, even if he didn't agree, I had already planned to give up. Leonard said, "Okay." For a moment I didn't react, my mouth half open, looking utterly foolish. Leonard glanced up at me and suddenly smiled. His smile was like ice and snow melting away. And I found myself staring in a daze. Leonard had his own pride. Zoe's illness is very expensive, but he would rather keep taking commercial projects and doing part-time jobs than accept my gifts or money. So Leonard doesn't have much time to go on dates with me. I respect his choice. Since my new major has many courses to catch up on, I simply spend every day at the cafe working on assignments while waiting for him. Sometimes I was so tired that I fell asleep. When I woke up, the cafe lights had been dimmed to a soft, warm glow, and a soft blanket with a kitten print was draped over me. On the notebook, the lengthy, tedious class paper had already been finished for me. A sticky note was attached to the side of the screen, with a vividly drawn, dozing kitten on it. The kitten is blowing snot bubbles while having a sweet dream, dreaming of a boy's profile sketched with a few strokes. Someone is a bit narcissistic. I glanced a few times at the adorable drawing in my hand. Feeling like a heart full of affection is about to burst out, I couldn't help but pull over the Leonard beside me, who was pretending to be busy, and gave his cheek a bite. I really like you. Leonard was caught off guard by the bite and scolded me softly. Olivia, behave yourself in public. His bright red ears betrayed him. When Leonard's painting won an award, facing the nationwide live broadcast, his acceptance speech was, "Thank you to my beloved, my muse, Olivia." Who would have thought that once happiness reaches its peak, it's all downhill from there? Because of my performance at the company, my mother has already designated me as her successor. Leonard's career stabilized. Zoe's health also improved significantly. This time, the one who was too busy to be seen became me. I don't know when it started, but our arguments became more and more frequent, from my non-stop work schedule, to his insistence on being on call for Zoe's trivial matters. To his persistent unwillingness to meet my family, Leonard's attitude grew colder, and his words became increasingly hurtful. Later, after every argument, Leonard would go out for inspiration, ranging from a few weeks to several months, until I gave in. He never apologized, at first. I would coax him out of love and longing. Leonard has never been in a relationship. He's like a flower on a high peak. Since I worked so hard to pluck him, I ought to take responsibility. Later, with too many repetitions, I gradually became numb and just tried to keep the peace. After all, there really is a lot going on at the company. I gradually began to feel that the sense of achievement from work had surpassed my desire for a future with Leonard. Leonard paled slightly, his expression tinged with regret, but I knew he wouldn't apologize. I let out a short laugh and looked down at the crimson stain on my fingertip. So that's what you think of me? 5 years, and you still haven't figured out what kind of person I am. I never thought that having a few more relationships meant my love was any less valuable. So this is how Leonard thinks. If that's the case, why did you agree to be with me? Although he kept refusing when I pursued him. He would always show up to the gatherings I organized. Every time I decided to let go, he would give me a little hope again. He returned the flowers I gave him, but I noticed he secretly kept a rose. In the painting that won him his first national award, the girl with her profile showing was unmistakably me. Later, Leonard rose to fame, and someone offered $800,000 for that painting. Leonard gave it to me. This was the first gift he ever gave me. He never allowed me to give him expensive gifts, yet he gave me such a precious painting. I cherish it immensely. The pattern on the frame was painted by me, and the solid wood and inlaid gemstones were all handpicked by me. It now hangs in our living room. I look at the dignified and mature Leonard before me. Before my eyes emerges the image of that young man from 5 years ago, wearing a white shirt, quietly sketching my face in front of the easel. Finally, I slowly came to realize. This asymmetrical love was nothing but my own delusional infatuation. Leonard spoke in a hurried tone. "No, I saw you." He didn't know what came to mind, but his breathing grew heavy, and his eyes turned red. "Forget it, let's not talk about that," Leonard said. "Meeting the parents, let's wait a bit longer. I'm going abroad this week for inspiration." Here we go again. It means this matter is settled for now, and I can prepare to coax him. I sighed and stood up. Leonard lowered his long eyelashes, stiffening almost imperceptibly. I vaguely recalled that when we first had conflicts, if I took the initiative to snuggle into his arms, Leonard would relent with a cold expression, but later on, he became harder and harder to placate. I brushed past him and walked over to the painting I had always cherished as dearly as my own eyes. The cigarette had burned down to my fingertips, and I could feel the skin scorching. I raised my hand and pressed the last ember onto the serene, smiling face of the girl in the painting. The high temperature produced a faint sizzling sound. Soon, that area was charred black. I turned around. "No need to wait, Leonard, let's break up." Leonard remained silent for a long time. It wasn't until I had gathered my documents and reached the door that I heard his hoarse voice. "Olivia." I gripped the doorknob, not turning back, not moving. Leonard said coldly, "Don't you regret it?" I didn't answer. The door closed behind me. My sense of novelty always fades quickly. I hate the silent treatment, and I've never had to coax anyone with such a low profile before. I also hate coming back after working day and night at the company, dragging my exhausted body home, only to lie alone in an empty house. My phone is flooded with endless work messages, yet the chat with my loved one has been silent for weeks. I strive to do everything to the extreme. Being a couch potato means not overthinking and indulging in a life of luxury without a care. To take control of my own destiny, I can also work tirelessly without sleep. I never hesitate to show Leonard my affection. He has a difficult personality and isn't good at expressing himself, so I don't mind taking the initiative to smooth things over, but after being the one who always initiates, one also longs to hear an echo. This relationship gradually turned into a black hole, devouring my love, devouring my life, yet never returning an echo. That little bit of sweetness requires me to scrape it from everywhere. His cold remarks about my social engagements were actually out of concern for my health. He signed a small muse on every painting he made of me, and once, when I woke up at night, I found Leonard holding me in his arms, gently kissing the ends of my hair, but gradually, I could no longer feel love, nor could I feel pain. I was just utterly exhausted. When I called Paula, she yawned drowsily. "What time is it, my miss, Olivia? Even grinding has its limits. Are you made of iron?" After hearing what I said, Paula's voice immediately lost all traces of drowsiness. "What, you broke up?" By the time I rushed to the bar, Paula was already raising her glass and shouting, "Tonight, everything's on me." I couldn't help but advise her, "Save some money. Business isn't doing well these days." Paula rolled her eyes at me. "Things were so much better back in college." "It's all because of that Lou guy. Now you've turned into a wicked capitalist." Sounding just like my brother. Hearing Leonard's name, my heart sank. Paula, noticing my change in expression, shoved a glass of wine into my hand. "Let's celebrate. I thought that Lou guy had put a love spell on you. Good thing the spellworm is dead, and my baby's back to her senses." I took a complicated sip of the wine. Paula does not like Leonard. Leonard not only refuses to meet my family but also never appears in my social circle. But Paula still keenly deduced from my sugar-coated fragments of words that Leonard is a pretentious deadbeat with a messed-up mind and a green tea sidekick. Zoe's social media account was discovered by her. Zoe has hundreds of thousands of followers and often shares her cancer-fighting diaries. In the videos, she calls out brother in a sweet voice, a big-eyed girl as fragile as a porcelain doll, and a man who, though not showing his face, appears silent and gentle. Zoe never responds to speculation in the comments about whether they are a couple, only ambiguously liking remarks that exclaim about true love and wish them 99, long-lasting. I'm not interested in the little girl's tricks. What I care about has always been Leonard's attitude. Unfortunately, I've been disappointed time and time again. By the time I snapped out of my daze, a row of male models was already standing in front of me. Paula, seeing me frown, she picked the two most handsome ones to pour wine on the side, and with a wave of her hand, dismissed the rest. She took my hand, her eyes blazing. "Olivia, men are like buses. If you miss one, the next one arrives in 5 minutes. Besides, you two were never from the same world to begin with." I said, "I know, I understand this better than anyone. That's why I abandoned my old way of life to gain the right to choose freely, the right to choose Leonard." Paula, she stopped there and didn't go further, instead switching to gossip within the circle. She was in high spirits, had a couple more drinks, and got a bit tipsy. I took her home. Just as we reached her doorstep, the door suddenly opened. The man was tall and well-built with broad shoulders and a narrow waist. Dressed in a well-tailored black suit with a trench coat casually draped over his arm, seemingly about to head out, his features were deep and sharp, not quite resembling those of an Easterner, with prominent brow bones and a high, straight-nosed bridge. At this moment, he saw Paula and raised an eyebrow slightly. "So you finally decided to come back." This person exuded the aura of someone long accustomed to being in a position of power, and combined with the Richard Mille watch on his wrist. He was Paula's older brother, who had returned to the country to inspect business matters. "Killian." I struggled to extend my hand through Paula's obstruction. "Mr. Killian, a pleasure to meet you." Killian turned his gaze to my face upon hearing this, freezing almost imperceptibly. He had a strikingly handsome appearance with an aggressive charm, his eyes deep and dark. I've met quite a few people over the years, but this was the first time I truly felt like I was locking eyes with a large, wild beast. Killian extended his well-defined hand, his palm broad and warm, almost enveloping mine. His gaze was intense and unreadable, lost in thought. After a long moment, the corners of his lips lifted. "Olivia, it's you." I was taken aback, unable to recall where I had met him before. I only felt that the woody scent on him was steady and elegant, somehow familiar. Killian had an urgent meeting and left with a nod to me. After he left, my hand still faintly felt the lingering warmth of his body heat, and I unconsciously rubbed my fingers together. Paula pretended to be drunk to avoid trouble, and suddenly lifted her head from where it had been buried in the crook of my neck. She blinked, as if thinking of some plan, then slumped against me again like a boneless heap. "Olivia, I'm feeling unwell. Stay with me for a couple of days, please." The next day when I got up, a beautifully plated eggs Benedict was already on the dining table, accompanied by soup dumplings and congee. Paula was also sitting drowsily at the table and winked at me when she saw me. Want to try my brother's cooking? He's so domestic, he can make anything. Killian untied the apron and smiled at me. I wasn't sure what you'd like, so I made a bit of everything. He was dressed much more casually today, with his black hair casually falling over his cool, pale forehead, softening the sharpness of his features, but Killian wearing that little strawberry apron with his face still had a contrasting cuteness to it. I took a bite with a hint of skepticism, and my eyes instantly lit up. Both Leonard and I can't cook. When I'm busy at work, I lose track of day and night, and I just make do with whatever I can. I never expected Killian, with his cool and aloof face, to have such a hobby. I said sincerely, this must be hard to make, right? Brother Pei is really amazing. Killian had been quietly watching my expression, and at these words, he curved the corner of his lips. Just call me Killian, what's the big deal? It's not like it's an overseas merger case. My hand paused. This was something I had been busy with not long ago, because I hadn't been home for so long. Leonard even had a fight with me. We exchanged a few words. Killian had clearly been paying close attention, and the questions he raised hit the mark. Killian knew more about me than I had expected. And Paula was far too obvious in her attempt to promote her brother like he was unsold stock. I glanced at Paula, who was busy eating, and thought the siblings should share their cunning more evenly. I took out my phone and asked my assistant to arrange for someone to clean my house, but then a few messages popped up on my phone, sent by Zoe. If you don't want your dirty deeds to be made public, come to the hospital now. She sent a few pitch-black, censored images. And I glanced at them but couldn't make out what they were. I casually blocked Zoe. I have a meeting today and no time to play house with my ex-boyfriend's sister, but she reminded me of one thing. Zoe has a good post-operative prognosis and should have been discharged long ago, but she always complained about this and that pain, so it was only natural that she stayed in the hospital for observation. This observation lasted for over half a year. I sent a message to my assistant. Killian reached out and handed me a cup of warm honey water, not to your taste. His fingers were slender, with distinct knuckles, and veins extended gracefully from his wrist to the back of his hand. His sleeves were casually rolled halfway up, revealing the natural, fluid lines of his forearm muscles. Last night, I heard Paula say that Killian has great athletic talent and was the basketball team captain when studying abroad. Actually, it's quite appealing. I didn't answer. Just dabbed the corner of my mouth with a napkin and smiled politely. Thanks, but I have a meeting at the company. I should get going. Killian took a sip himself and smiled at me. See you later. Olivia, the merger case isn't going smoothly, and I haven't even had time to think about Leonard in the next few weeks. I didn't expect to see Killian again so soon. At the charity banquet, Killian pushed through the crowd and walked up to me, winking. Pleasure to meet you, Olivia. I had intended to exchange a few polite words and then leave, but Killian was surprisingly great at conversation. He is humorous and sharp, speaking directly to the essence of things, and he knows when to bring up extended topics. More importantly, his views on many of the issues faced in the development of YL are also spot on. Killian's family has most of their businesses overseas, which I wasn't very familiar with, so I asked him out of curiosity. Killian laughed and said, just a few small companies. Before we knew it, our conversation lasted until the end. It had been a long time since I'd felt so effortlessly engaged in a chat. Not wanting it to end, I gladly accepted when Killian offered to walk me home. Just as we reached the car, a clear, angry voice rang out, Olivia, you're the one he cheated with. I followed the voice and saw Zoe in a hospital gown. Killian quickly stepped forward, shielding me behind him. I saw his hand instinctively reach toward his waist. Zoe, her pale little face looked especially fragile and beautiful in the darkness, her black hair cascading like a waterfall over her chest, with a few blood-stained medical tapes still clinging to her hand. I frowned, unsure what the point of this look was. She had been discharged from the hospital half a month ago. Zoe burst out angrily with a series of questions. Was it you who had the hospital kick me out? Olivia, do you think just because you have a bit of money, you can trample on other people's feelings and dignity as you please? Has your brother spent a single penny of yours in the 5 years he's been with you? Did you even care how heartbroken he was after finding out you cheated? Did you ever ask once when he drank until his stomach bled? It wasn't until the end that I froze, just about to open my mouth. Then I realized. I no longer had the right to ask. The security guard had already rushed over at the sound. Zoe didn't struggle, just kept shouting, I will make you pay for this. I got into the passenger seat, still unable to hold back a laugh at her big wolf-style line. Although I had no intention of proving anything to her, I still rolled down the window halfway and added, Zoe, since you're feeling better, watch less cartoons and the temptation to go home, and go to school. On the way home, I sighed wearily. I'm really sorry, my ex-boyfriend's sister, for making you see such an embarrassing scene. Zoe must have specifically found out about my schedule today. Most of the attendees are influential people in the business world, and she wanted to humiliate me in public. I didn't expect I would leave so late. Killian shook his head, his long brows slightly furrowed, his expression stern, as if pondering something. Do you need my help? He always had a smile on his face. So I had forgotten that his features were actually quite aggressive. I was taken aback for a moment, then remembered his habit of reaching to touch the small of his back, and a suspicion began to form in my mind. You're not going to take her out, are you? Like tying her up and throwing her into the open sea or something? But that would be too harsh a punishment, Killian chuckled. What are you thinking, Olivia? This is a society governed by law. I'm a law-abiding citizen. The atmosphere in the car lightened. Having practiced shooting at a range abroad myself, I enthusiastically discussed firearm mechanics with Killian. Killian was well versed in all kinds of firearms. Carried away by the conversation, he even told me an exciting story. It was a private feud between someone and his father's illegitimate son. The two were like fire and water, and he even had to sleep with a gun under his pillow. At the worst point, the hitman hired by his brother was nearby. He stayed up all night, his gun aimed at the door the entire time. By dawn, he couldn't hold on any longer, but then the lock clicked open. My curiosity was piqued, and I pressed for the ending. Killian, but he wouldn't say any more. He parked the car and opened the door for me. Killian, his deep black eyes twinkled as he smiled and said, if you want to know what happens next, Ms. Olivia, if you grace me with a meal next week, I'll tell you the ending. I had intended to make up an excuse to refuse. But somehow, I ended up saying, okay. I didn't figure out why I agreed all the way home. Maybe I really wanted to know the ending. Her phone suddenly rang. It's Leonard. I watched the phone ring once, then ring again. On the 8th ring, I picked up. There was the sound of wind on the other end of the line. Leonard was silent for a moment before suddenly speaking. Olivia, what happened today was Zoe's fault. I apologized to you on her behalf. I hummed in agreement and asked, is there anything else? After another long silence, just as I was about to lose patience, Leonard suddenly asked softly, you and your assistant, and those men, are you really? I was completely stunned. On the other end of the phone, Leonard seemed to put all his strength into every word he said. You go to his place several times a month. I really tried hard to pretend I didn't know. One winter night a year ago, I found a newborn puppy downstairs at my company. It was the only one from the litter that survived. Leonard is allergic to dog fur, so I could only keep it at the company and gave it the name Fluffy. Although I say I'm the one keeping it, I actually don't have much time to take care of it. My assistant grew attached to it and, after getting my permission, took Fluffy home. Perhaps because I was the first person Fluffy saw, it's especially clingy to me. I would stop eating and drinking if I didn't see you for a while. And I would keep whimpering sadly. I told Leonard about these things. He was in the aftermath of one of our arguments at the time and remained silent about the puppy story I used to ease the tension. So I tactfully didn't bring it up again. I can't quite describe the feeling in my heart, a bit like wanting to cry, yet also a bit like wanting to laugh. The face in the mirror across from me showed a rather ugly expression. It was quite ridiculous. It felt absurd. Like I had intended to conquer a dragon and protect a princess, only to realize I had been working in a circus for years. Leonard spent this year self-righteously enduring what he called my infidelity. He wouldn't even bother to ask me directly or search my assistant's name online. He didn't trust my character, nor did he believe in my love. The most absurd part is that I've been filling all my time with work these past few weeks. The moment he spoke, I realized, I still miss him very much. I still have some expectations of him. I'm starting to hate love. Love makes people so cheap. I sneered. Does it matter? Just as I was about to hang up, Leonard spoke again. Olivia, when will you be back? His voice was soft, tinged with confusion. This sentence was the signal that our Cold War had ended. Every time, I was the one who took the initiative to call him, and after asking this question, he would give me a time. This means our Cold War can come to an end now. It was the first time he had asked me. I reminded him, we've already broken up. I hung up the phone and without hesitation, blocked his number. I was utterly exhausted, both physically and mentally, feeling as if one bad thing after another had been piling up lately, making it hard to breathe. I postponed the meeting scheduled for the next morning and fell into a deep sleep. I hadn't slept for long before I was awakened by my assistant's incessant urgent calls. My assistant's calm voice came through the phone. Ms. Olivia, something's wrong. Zoe's outfit was indeed carefully planned with a hidden agenda. She had hidden a pinhole camera in her collar and had been live-streaming the entire commotion just now. Zoe already had a large number of followers, and with the added buzz of scandal and high society, the story had already climbed to the top of the trending charts. She accused me of retaliating against her because I broke up with her brother. Using underhanded means to drive a cancer patient out of the hospital, she also presented evidence that, despite coming from a wealthy family, I never spent a single penny on Leonard during our 5-year relationship, and always lived in houses bought by Leonard. She also recounted my past romantic history. Directly accusing me of repeatedly cheating and treating Leonard as a plaything, she showed a few photos, taken by someone unknown, with blurry quality, but they were indeed pictures of me entering and leaving my assistant's home late at night, and it was even different men who came to pick her up. Combined with the way Killian shielded me during the live broadcast just now, public opinion immediately began to judge, oh my god, she's already so rich and still trying to milk money. Is this woman insane? Preventing a cancer patient from receiving treatment, what's the difference between her and a murderer, who said the birth rate is low? This is truly beastly, probably because she thinks her brother is easy to handle, who from a well-matched family would accept such promiscuity. Don't even say it, but she's eating quite well. This pretty boy is so handsome. This handsome guy looks a bit familiar. Am I the only one who thought Zoe and her brother were a couple? This comment flooded the screen. Zoe sobbed as she replied, we're not related by blood, followed by a string of comments. No wonder they were so sweet in the video. Oh my god, we're saved. At the same time, my phone started popping up with a flood of foul language and calls from strangers. My heart sank. I immediately thought of the current MA deal, which had just run into valuation issues, and the company's cash flow was already tight. This kind of scandal, once it spreads, is bound to affect the company's stock price. I made a decision, promptly switched to a backup phone, and while getting dressed, instructed my assistant, notify legal and PR. I'm heading over now. The assistant's voice sounded surprised. MS, Olivia, Zoe's livestream has already been banned. Not only was it banned, the entire account is gone. My hand paused as I was buttoning up. Oh no, covering up might have worked when media wasn't so developed. But now it's likely to backfire even more severely. I quickly searched the keywords, and sure enough, clips were everywhere, each with high engagement. Marketing accounts have elevated the theme to the oppression and mockery of ordinary people by capital. The official company account's comment section was completely overrun with ridicule and abuse. My personal resume and relationship history were completely exposed. The comments became more and more outrageous. And soon I saw a comment from my friend saying, I love this kind of beautiful siblings with no background the most. I had no time to feel the shiver that ran through my body. The golden window for public relations is only 4 hours. I hurried out the door, and the cold air outside made me shiver. At that moment, I spotted a familiar figure by the roadside. It's Leonard. He had no idea how long he had been standing there. It dawned on me that Leonard was standing downstairs when he called me. When he saw me, a gleam of pleasant surprise lit up his eyes. Olivia, I confronted him directly. Leonard, Zoe's actions, did you know about them? Leonard looked completely bewildered. I turned on my phone screen to show him. Leonard's lips turned pale. He said in disbelief, how could Zoe do something like this? So wicked, so foolish, so self-righteous. Leonard did not utter these adjectives. He lowered his gaze and whispered softly, Olivia. It's my fault for not disciplining Zoe properly. But in your heart, am I really that despicable? I said. Likewise, Leonard's face grew even paler. I said, excuse me, I have something to do. As we brushed past each other, Leonard grabbed my wrist. Olivia, I'll go with you. I tilted my head to look at him and suddenly laughed. Very well. The company had become highly efficient under my repeated reorganizations. In less than an hour, all the materials were organized. The live broadcast equipment was set up. Across from me sat a journalist known for his sharp tongue. Under the company's massive logo, the journalist posed some pointed questions to me, echoing the public sentiment. Her gaze flickered behind her glasses. MS, Olivia, based on Zoe's livestream tonight. The first question is it true that Zoe is suffering from cancer and was discharged from the hospital under your orders? I smiled in response. Quite the opposite. I took out a stack of reports. I'm afraid Zoe knows less about her own condition than I do. Half a year ago, the doctor suggested Zoe could be discharged to live a normal life, with only occasional checkups needed, but Zoe kept complaining of pain, and examinations couldn't find any cause, and so she just kept staying on. Moreover, the hospital only notified Zoe that the coverage of her commercial insurance had expired and required her to pay 6,000 yuan per day for the VIP ward. I believe the term eviction is inaccurate. The reporter briefly summarized the key points of the medical report and continued to press. MS. Olivia seems to be very familiar with Zoe's treatment situation. I said, yes, because Zoe does not have any commercial insurance purchased by her mother for her. All treatment costs, including the initial failed standard treatments, the later one, 2 million yuan per dose CAR-T drug, and Zoe's VIP ward expenses, will be covered by me personally. Zoe's mother passed away early, so I hired a lawyer to deceive them into believing that Zoe's mother had once taken out an insurance policy for Zoe. I glanced at the screen, where the rapidly scrolling comments had completely shifted in tone. Heavens, what a beautiful and kind-hearted living bodhisattva. Is there still this kind of event? If I won millions, I'd change partners. How did this sister just sneakily give herself away so fresh and lovely? So, was the money grabbing also fake? What money grabbing? The Wen family has a manor in our local area. The young lady lowering herself to live in that painter's shabby house is just going crazy for love. Damn, can't even freeload properly. Step aside and let me do it. I'd gladly serve the male concubines postpartum month. Zoe is such a piece of work. Someone saves her life and she's after their partner. Am I the only one who never liked her? Feels great when someone you dislike finally gets exposed to the whole world. +1+1. The reporter paused briefly, displaying on the screen a photo of Zoe as evidence of my infidelity. Regarding Zoe's accusations about your private life, does Ms. Olivia have anything to explain to the public? I said seriously. I don't wish to fall into the trap of self-justification, but given the impact on others' lives, a public statement is necessary. I explained the origin of the cat. As for those times late at night, it was because the furball had canine distemper. And several times we thought it wouldn't make it. The assistant has several pets at home, so there's always a camera set up in the living room. So, the over 100,000 people in the livestream watched a 10-minute video of me frantically petting the dog. Sis, I'm your dog too. Pet me, I'm so helpless after getting lost. Woof woof, teacher in front. Did I see it wrong? Did those two men behind just kiss? The assistant awkwardly coughed twice and stepped forward to explain. That's my husband. We've been married for 7 years. Off camera, Leonard turned pale and swayed slightly. The barrage of comments was flooded with screams once again. I searched the name on Instagram and saw the wedding photos. They look so perfect together, so sweet. I'm dying of sweetness. This boss is pretty cool, not discriminatory at all. What company is this? YL Group. Can't you see such big letters? Are you blind? Zoe has the nerve to accuse others of cheating, but everyone knows what she's thinking about her brother. Every time her brother avoids physical contact with her, she switches screens. She's living in a dream every day. The reporter asked 2 more rounds of questions, and I gradually relaxed. I glanced at the number of viewers still increasing in the upper right corner and began intentionally introducing the company's business. A wave of ha 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 floated across the bullet comments. We heard it, sis. No need to keep repeating expand the business, make it bigger and stronger. Sis has an absolutely amazing career drive. I thought I'd stumbled into a product launch event halfway through. There were also sporadic sarcastic remarks mixed in. What career ambition? It's just a love-struck brain silently sacrificing for a man, getting all worked up the moment someone tries to steal him away. The timing was about right, so I took the opportunity to announce a donation of 3 million yuan to the Cancer Charity Foundation, expressing my apology for occupying public resources. Finally, I looked directly into the camera. Today's response is only to clarify the facts. Mr. Leonard and I parted ways peacefully a month ago. The other gentleman mentioned in the livestream is a business partner of YL. I hope everyone will refrain from spreading rumors. I have no personal grievances with Ms. Zoe. Saving her was not something I expected any reward for. I did it only because she is the only family of someone I once loved. As for Zoe, I hope everyone will not engage in online bullying against her. She fell ill at a young age, and her treatment process has been painful. I have witnessed it all. Her life has been confined to hospitals and her brother, so it's inevitable that her thoughts might become extreme. One last word, at this moment, I'd like to share it with all women. With power comes boundless possibilities. I hope everyone has the courage to cut losses in time. As the spotlight went out, I had no time to attend to Leonard, instructing the PR department to monitor public opinion in real time. The assistant contacted a professional PR firm, which began pushing streams of edited highlights and memes to steer public opinion toward entertainment. Also arranged is YL Group's Years of Charity Activities review. The company's product quality has always been excellent, and catching this wave of public opinion might just take its development to the next level. Only after finishing the work did I realize that Leonard was still quietly watching me from the side. It wasn't until we stepped outside that he finally spoke. I'll pay you back the money. The company's online sales have been skyrocketing since the live stream began. I glanced at the report on my phone again. No need, Zoe has already paid it off. I smiled and said to myself, these days, attention is money, and I should thank your foolish sister for it." Leonard suddenly pulled me into his arms, holding me tightly as if wanting to merge me into his very bones and blood. I was almost suffocated by the embrace. The clean scent of him mingling with the winter's cold wind rushing into my nostrils. In a daze, it felt as if I had returned to 5 years ago. I threw myself into the arms of Leonard, who had come to pick me up after class. He complained about my cold face but held me tightly in his embrace. As if letting go even a little would make me disappear, Leonard murmured "I love you" over and over, as if trying to make up for all the times he hadn't said it in the past 5 years. If only every "I love you" had been scattered throughout those 5 years, how much better it would have been. But now they are all piled up in a mess, like a heap of stones that have lost their luster, dull and heavy, pressing down on my heart until I can hardly breathe. I struggled slightly. Leonard immediately let go of me. He has always been cold and distant, yet the expression on his face at this moment was like that of a child who has been abandoned and doesn't know what to do. I raised my hand and touched his face, feeling some suspicious wet traces. Leonard let me touch his tear stains, his head slightly lowered, and he continued indifferently, "I will win you back." The heart beating in my chest felt as if it were being tightly clenched and then released, leaving behind pain along with a strange sense of relief. I thought I always had so much to say to him, even during the height of our romance, when I secretly imagined us breaking up. I had a whole basket of words prepared, this line to sound carefree, that one to remind him to take care of his health, leaving just a sliver of hope for reconciliation. But when it came down to it, I had nothing to say. "Don't you understand, Leonard? We won't be seeing each other again," I said softly. "Goodbye." When I arrived at the restaurant, Killian was casually gazing out the 100th floor window at the glittering night view of the entire city. I got straight to the point. "Thank you." With Killian's keen eye, if I could spot the cameras, he certainly would have noticed them too. Killian's few small companies include the renowned HY Capital. After I generously forgave Zoe, Killian's legal team filed a lawsuit demanding that Zoe issue a public apology and compensate for emotional damages. After all, HY did not forgive Zoe. We seized the opportunity and successfully secured the collaboration. Killian curled his lips, brimming with confidence. "You're too kind, Olivia." Killian offered very generous terms, with just one additional clause. He wants to call me Olivia, just like Paula does. We clinked glasses, and I urged him. "And the ending?" Killian blinked his peach blossom eyes. "The ending is right in front of you, a bit hasty, but it leaves some room for imagination." I decided to give it a 70, barely satisfied. Killian raised his glass to me, too. He tilted his head slightly in thought. "Infinite possibilities." I raised my glass. Finding these words perfectly captured my current state of mind. The crystal glasses clinked with a pleasant sound, like drawing a light and graceful period to a 5-year obsession. Well's future is unfolding before me. For the first time, I am purely enjoying this moment. I look out the window at the dazzling lights. To infinite possibilities. Leonard extra. Olivia, why does she like him? Leonard, he never figured out the answer to that question. He had known Olivia for a long time. No one in the entire school didn't know Olivia. There were many rumors about her. A pretty airhead, a spoiled rich girl, who changed boyfriends faster than she changed clothes. Leonard first saw her at the coffee shop where he worked part-time. A handsome young man sat across from her. The young man called out tenderly, "Olivia." Olivia wrinkled her nose impatiently. "Let's break up. I don't like being called that." She skillfully fled the scene, like a little cat adept at causing trouble. Leonard went to clear the table and found $200 thoughtfully tucked under the cup. Afterward, Leonard found himself frequently running into Olivia. Sometimes she was playing with stray cats, other times she was enthusiastically browsing art books in the library, and occasionally she would stretch lazily in the sunlight at the cafe. Occasionally, there would be a handsome guy by her side. Without exception, they all had a rather foolish expression on their faces. Once, Leonard saw Olivia wearing a red volunteer vest, leading a group of children on a campus tour. Even in the red vest, she looked as if she were wearing haute couture, radiant and full of energy under the sunlight. Leonard wore a mask, pretending to be a passerby, and quietly moved a bit closer to the team, as someone who rarely attends classes. Olivia surprisingly knows a great deal about the school's history. The little child fell down and cried loudly. Olivia searched all her pockets but couldn't find a tissue, so she simply used her sleeve to wipe the child's tears. Leonard silently handed over a pack of tissues. Olivia, her soft hand brushed against his. He mumbled a vague response, leaving Olivia's thanks behind as he hurried back to the dormitory. The school dormitory building was old, and Leonard ran all the way up to the 6th floor in one breath. Gasping for air, he turned on the faucet and splashed water on his face. When he looked into the mirror, he saw that his own dripping face also wore that same foolish expression. 20. Leonard Extra. He saw Olivia again at the on-campus art exhibition. Olivia lingered for a long time in front of his painting, circling around to view it from different angles, even pulling a magnifying glass from her pocket. Leonard watched from a distance. Feeling an inexplicable sense of embarrassment, as if he had been stripped bare, he mustered up his courage before stepping forward. Olivia cast a casual glance in his direction. She suddenly raised her head again, this time staring at him intently for a moment. Leonard cleared his throat. "Hello, my name is Leonard, and this is my painting." Olivia smiled and extended her hand. "Hello, I'm Olivia." She began discussing his paintings with Leonard. And Leonard was surprised to find that Olivia had a high level of appreciation. She also spoke highly of his paintings. As she was leaving, Olivia playfully winked at him. "When are you going to paint one for me, genius artist?" Leonard lingered before the drawing board for a long time that night. He was in a daze, unaware that he had already started drawing. By the time he came to his senses, the entire sheet of paper was already filled with Olivia. Olivia, 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 Olivia. 21. Leonard Extra. Olivia was clearly interested in him. She made no attempt to hide it. Later on, she even pursued him openly. Olivia was like that. She felt no shame for her love. She did everything with unshakable confidence. Leonard felt that he should be grateful for this face. But Olivia's interests come and go like the wind. Just as her knowledge is broad and eclectic, Olivia dislikes rigid rules, saying, "Life is about experiences." She suddenly transferred to the business school. Reportedly to take over the family business. Leonard thought about his own life, Zoe's illness, and the savings left by his parents, which could barely cover the expenses. He and Olivia are as different as clouds and mud. Leonard thought darkly that it was better this way than for her to get him easily in the heat of the moment, only to be discarded after a few days of passion. Olivia could never have him. She would keep thinking about him, longer, a little longer. Even if he couldn't hold Olivia's soft hand. But Olivia got burned by the coffee machine. For him, Leonard slowly applied the burn ointment for her, hearing her mumble complaints about why he still hadn't agreed to her. How could someone be so much like a little kitten? So adorable that he had to lower his head deeply to hide the ugly, overwhelming desire to kiss her. He heard himself say almost impatiently, "Okay." 22. Leonard Extra story. Leonard was unkind to Olivia. He knew it. The environment at home had never taught him how to love, and so it followed naturally that he knew nothing of it. Even with only Zoe left as family, it felt more like a habitual sense of duty. He was clumsy with words, afraid that he might say the wrong thing and Olivia wouldn't want him. Seeing Olivia laughing and chatting with others, the bitterness and jealousy in his heart nearly consumed him. He didn't dare to meet Olivia's friends and family, actually. The first time Olivia took him to have dinner with her friends, he did go. Olivia beamed with eyes curved like crescents, as if proudly showing off a rare treasure. "This is my boyfriend. Handsome, isn't he?" The crowd chimed in with congratulations, all praising the couple as a perfect match, both talented and attractive, truly made for each other. But Leonard didn't miss those subtle exchanged glances and the furtive looks shared among them, while going to the restroom during the dinner. He overheard two people discussing. Olivia seriously, bringing someone just for fun to such an occasion. The other person replied indifferently, with Miss Wen's track record of changing partners, "There'll be a new one soon anyway." He knew he wasn't good enough for Olivia. Olivia was just playing with him, and he thought it was fine. He just didn't want to hear the next one from their mouths. Olivia didn't understand why, and she no longer insisted. Her work was getting busier, and she no longer had time to hang out with fair-weather friends. She was too young, and the people below her didn't respect her. Olivia was very upset. She had many social engagements she couldn't avoid, and sometimes she came back drunk, leaning half on her young and handsome assistant. The assistant was so young, so handsome, with even light blue eyes. It was like Olivia's former type. Leonard was mad with jealousy, but she looked so tired, so Leonard swallowed his questions, and so the unspoken grievances piled up. In the end, they still ended up arguing. During their first argument, Leonard stared at the chat box all afternoon, typing and deleting and typing. In the end, it was Olivia who called, her tone as calm as usual, asking him when he'd be home. Leonard chewed on that word over and over, feeling a sweet sense of reality. He has a home too, with Olivia. The house was bought by Leonard, and Olivia never complained about it being small. He doesn't like outsiders around, so he personally made the house cozy. Sometimes when he woke up, he would see Olivia nestled in his arms, the sunlight streaming warmly through the bay window, casting a golden edge on the translucent fine hairs on Olivia's face. He would have the illusion that they were already married. But their conflicts were never truly resolved. Leonard was also growing increasingly accustomed to Olivia's submission. Even if she truly had someone else, She was only willing to lower her head for him. He should be content, shouldn't he? After all, he never dared to believe Olivia would love him, only him. Olivia wanted him to meet the Wen family parents, but he clearly knew the attitude of the Wen family. If he waited until he was more successful, would everything be different? That night in the hospital room, Leonard absent-mindedly saw the fireworks, which were specially arranged by Olivia. Originally, she was supposed to watch them with him. He thought that by standing her up once, Olivia wouldn't insist on him meeting her parents anymore. It should be fine, right? Olivia often gets too busy and forgets the time, leaving him with a table of cold dishes. Right after he said those words, he immediately regretted it. His intuition told him that something had shattered. Finally, a flash of fire, and it was all over. Olivia took nothing. She wanted nothing from this house, nor did she want him anymore. He really didn't have to see the Wen family parents again. Leonard later learned that she had silently done so much for him. Zoe, the unusually generous business insurance that suddenly appeared, his exceptionally smooth path as a painter. It turned out that the Wen family had long arranged a promising young talent for her. She could have lived the rest of her life without worries. Leonard saw Killian send Olivia home. They looked so harmonious, so perfectly matched. The man's eyes were shining. Leonard recognized that look. It was the look of someone who had longed for something for a long time. He wanted to punch the man in the face. But what right did he have now? Leonard felt he was the stupidest person in the world. His paintings grew increasingly famous, fetching unbelievable prices at auctions. He kept painting the same person over and over, gentle, angry, abstract, surreal, bathed in light and shadow, but he never truly saw the person in the paintings again. She appears in paintings, in newspapers, on television, on screens, only she will no longer appear in his embrace. She will not look back. Olivia never regrets. 23, Killian Diary, excerpt, July 12, 2021. The old man said his old friend has a daughter and wants me to meet her. What era is this? Still arranging marriages. I'm not going. July 14, 2021. They rejected me first. Did they not see my photo? I'm not convinced. What kind of goddess do they think they are? July 18, 2021. Really, it's a celestial beauty. What should I do? If only I had known, I would have insisted on meeting her no matter what. I liked her a little from the first glance. Paula told me about her. How could someone be so similar to me? I think we would definitely get along well, but now going back home would just be letting that old man's little mouse off easy. Forget it, it was just not meant to be. November 20th, 2021. I heard Olivia has a boyfriend, and she was the one who pursued him. The guy has neither class nor taste. Is he better than me? I don't think so. September 17th, 2022. The little mouse is getting more and more out of line. Fair competition. If you can't win, you can't win. But planting a bomb in my car, isn't that a bit too much? How can it still be so poor quality? A loud bang from far away. That startled me. I don't even know Olivia yet. I heard she's now in the upper management of YL. The old man can't stop praising her every time he mentions her. If he could keep his pants on, I wouldn't be so constrained at every turn. Olivia, why hasn't she broken up with him yet? I'll ask Paula later. She's even more resentful than I am. December 23rd, 2023. I was so infatuated that I returned to the country to attend a masquerade ball. Paula said Olivia would be there. She looked stunning even with a mask on. I made up an identity, claiming I was an extreme sports enthusiast, afraid she might remember me and feel awkward. Talking to her brings me so much happiness, even if it's just for a little while, but I feel like she's not happy. Olivia, can you break up? I really can't cross the moral line. December 7th, 2024. Last year, I didn't manage to crush the little rat, and this year it gave me a big gift. Directly hired a hitman. Although I survived, I took 2 bullets. Enjoy your 300 years in prison, little rat. I thought I was going to die. All I could think about was how I should have just focused on poaching clients back home. Morals be damned. That painter clearly doesn't know when to quit. Olivia, how tired Olivia looks in her recent public photos. It's evident even through the pictures. And then there's Paula's complaints. July 24th, 2025. Finished handling matters and returned to the country. July 28th, 2025. She broke up. She even ate the breakfast I made. Paula, she's being so obvious with the matchmaking. How can my little sister be this clueless? Her approach is better than mine. Olivia is so smart. I like her. I was a bit worried about her ex-boyfriend, but he's too weak to be a threat. But love doesn't follow logic. Olivia insists on liking him. What can we do? It's okay. I have confidence. August 25th, 2025. Infinite possibilities. Olivia didn't look at me when we clinked glasses. I know, love is only a small part of her life. I will wait until the day she wants to start over. Maybe it will be tomorrow. That's the charm of life. Every day is a new unknown. I look forward to the possibility of spending it with her. Story 2. Hobart's first love was abducted while filming in the wilderness, disappearing for 3 days and 3 nights. 2 months later, she stood on the rooftop, crying as she called him, Hobart. I'm pregnant. The media is tracking me. I don't want to live. He rushed to the rooftop and announced to all the media, the child is mine. Overnight, I became the laughingstock of the entire industry. That night, Hobart knelt before me, his eyes red and his voice choked. Ruby, Sandy has depression. If I don't help her, she'll die. Once she safely gives birth, I'll make it up to you. Okay. I loved him to the point of humility, and could only grit my teeth and agree. But the next day, news exploded all over the internet. The woman with the pixelated face in the photo is unmistakably me. Trembling all over, I found Hobart, who held me in a pained embrace. The news can't be suppressed any longer. Ruby, you rarely appear in public, so for now, you'll have to reluctantly take the blame. He reached out to hug me, but his words sent a chill straight to my bones. How about you get rid of the baby first? We can always have more later. In that moment, my heart died completely. I wiped away my tears and dialed a number that had been dormant for years. The call connected, and the man's deep voice carried a dangerous chuckle. You finally came to beg me. What did you say? My voice trembled. Sandy's kidnapping cannot be exposed. She just signed an endorsement deal with an international brand, and if it gets out, her career will be ruined. Hobart's tone was so calm it was almost cruel. But you're different. You rarely appear in public. As long as you take responsibility for this, public opinion will quickly pass. I stared intently at the man I had loved for years. Hobart, do you know what you're saying? Before, you wanted to acknowledge Sandy's child, and I agreed. Now, you want me to admit on her behalf that I was kidnapped and humiliated. His voice was low. Ruby, please, I'm begging you, begging me. I laughed, but tears streamed down my face. For her sake. You want me to ruin my own reputation. Sandy can't handle this kind of blow. She's already struggling with depression. His voice was urgent. But you're different. You've always been strong, so I'm just supposed to be sacrificed. I nearly hissed the words through clenched teeth. It's not sacrifice, just a temporary measure. He paused, his tone softening. Ruby, could you, maybe consider ending the pregnancy first? My world crumbled in an instant. Hobart, I said hoarsely. This is your child too, I know. He suddenly became agitated. But Sandy can't handle any more stress right now. My breath caught for a second. I laughed, tears streaming down my face. All right, I promise you. He was about to say something else when the phone suddenly rang. From the other end of the line, a sound of weeping could be heard. Woo-woo. Hobart, I had a nightmare. I'm so scared. Will they tell everyone about what happened to me? Sandy's fragile voice came through. Hobart's tone instantly changed, and he gently coaxed. Don't be afraid, Sandy. I won't let anyone hurt you. The call ended, and he turned to leave without hesitation. I went to the hospital. The nurse handed me a form, a flicker of pity in her eyes. Mrs. Colton, are you sure you want to proceed with the surgery? I looked down at the paper, on which was already signed Hobart's name. So, he had arranged this long ago. I nodded numbly. Amham. The doctor adjusted his glasses and said calmly, given your unique physical condition, this miscarriage could lead to lifelong infertility. Are you sure you want to take the risk? I suddenly looked up. Infertile for life. Yes, your uterine wall is relatively thin. If you force an abortion, it might be very difficult for you to get pregnant again in the future. My fingers trembled slightly. Hobart, you knew this situation all along, yet you still want me to abort this child, just for Sandy. I bit my lip hard until the taste of blood spread in my mouth. Suddenly, a strange movement stirred in my abdomen, like a little butterfly fluttering a few times. I grabbed the doctor's wrist abruptly. Stop, I don't want to do this anymore. The doctor frowned. Mrs. Colton, your husband specifically instructed. I said I'm not doing it. I roared, sitting up from the operating table and tearing off the surgical gown. I'm keeping this baby. When I walked out of the hospital, the sunlight was blinding. I opened my phone, and the top trending search was, #Hobart Sandy sweetly appears at luxury baby store #. In the accompanying photo, my husband carefully supports Sandy's lower back as she gently caresses her rounded belly. The comments section is filled with praise. This is truly a perfect match of talent and beauty. A radiant female star and a wealthy Beijing tycoon absolutely made for each other. Sandy is already pregnant, Mr. Hobart. How does that wife of his still have the nerve to keep her position? I heard that woman disappeared for a few days and came back pregnant with a bastard child. Mr. Hobart was kind enough not to divorce her on the spot. Who knows if she really went missing or faked it? Maybe she went out to meet some wild man in secret. My nails dug deep into my palms. Yet I felt no pain. "Don't be afraid, baby," I said, stroking my abdomen. "Mommy will protect you." I turned and went to the law firm to draft a divorce agreement. When I returned to the villa, the front door was slightly ajar. Pushing the door open, Sandy was lying on the sofa, Hobart's hand resting on her swollen belly. "Hobart, the baby is kicking me again," she giggled and grabbed Hobart's hand, pressing it against her belly. Hobart showed a tenderness I had never seen before. "It really is moving." I stood in the hallway, clenching my fists. Hobart saw me, and his expression changed slightly. He quickly walked over and lowered his voice. "Ruby, Sandy tried to kill herself again today. The doctor says she has prenatal depression. Could you just stay away for a while?" I sneered. "This is my home. We grew up together since we were kids. I can't just abandon her," he said, his tone softening. "After she gives birth, I'll find a way to send her and the child away, maybe help her pursue a career in Hollywood." I didn't say another word and turned to go upstairs. In the bedroom, their laughter could still be heard. "Oh, the baby kicked me." Sandy's voice was sickly sweet. I curled up on the bed, tears soaking the pillow. Late at night, Hobart climbed into bed quietly and hugged me from behind. "Ruby, I'm sorry," he said, his voice hoarse. "We'll have other children." My entire body stiffened. He still didn't know that I hadn't aborted the child. A piercing scream suddenly came from next door. It was Sandy. "Don't touch me. Get away. Don't touch me. Don't photograph me." Hobart shot up, not even bothering to put on his slippers, and rushed out. All night, the hallway echoed with his gentle soothing voice. Early morning, I dragged my tired body downstairs, and the aroma of frying eggs wafted from the kitchen. Hobart stood in front of the stove, and Sandy quietly wrapped her arms around his waist from behind, her face pressed against his back, smiling sweetly. Seeing me, she immediately let go and timidly said, "Sister-in-law, my head hurts a little. Can Hobart help me get my hat?" Hobart turned and went upstairs without a word. Sandy's apologetic expression vanished instantly. She leaned closer to me, her red lips curving into a smile. "Hobart said that the bastard in your belly should never have been kept." I snapped my head up, my fingertips trembling uncontrollably. She sneered, lowering her voice. "Do you know the Edmund family?" "My backer is the Edmund family." She paused deliberately, enjoying my sudden change of expression. "The Edmund family just needs to lift a finger, and City P will have an earthquake. What do you have to fight me with?" I clenched my fists tightly. The Edmund family is a truly top-tier, century-old aristocratic household, controlling half of the nation's economic lifeline, not to mention the Colton family. Even all the powerful and influential figures in City P combined are mere ants before the Edmund family. She suddenly stumbled backward, falling to the ground, and screamed loudly, "Sister-in-law, I know you hate me for stealing Hobart. I'll just go die, Ruby." Hobart rushed downstairs and roughly pushed me away. I staggered and hit the coffee table, a sharp pain shooting through my lower back. He pulled Sandy into his arms, his gaze icy and piercing. "What did you do to her? Can you stop being so unreasonable?" "I didn't do anything." My voice trembled. "You better not have." He held Sandy tightly and walked out without looking back. "Sandy, let's go." I stood in the living room, my hand unconsciously touching my lower abdomen. Hobart hasn't come home for 2 days. I stood in the living room, taking down our wedding photos one by one. The frames made a dull thud as they landed in the trash can. My phone vibrated. The screen lit up. "Ruby, I sent someone to pick something up. Please give it to them." The jewelry set worth tens of millions lay quietly in the drawer of the dressing room. "I remember when he bought it," he said. "This is for the most important person." I stared at the jewelry for a long time, then suddenly laughed. With an expressionless face, I took out the jewelry, handed it to the driver, and then pulled out a divorce agreement, speaking calmly. "Wait, give me a ride, I'll deliver it myself." The driver hesitated for a moment but still let me get in the car. The car stopped outside the luxurious manor, where the lights were bright and the symphony music was melodious. "MS, Sandy, happy birthday." Cheers of blessings came one after another. I walked in, and everyone's eyes instantly fell upon me. "Isn't that Mr. Hobart's wife? Why is she dressed like that, so tacky? I heard she's clinging to Mr. Hobart and won't let go. How shameless. Mr. Hobart should have dumped her long ago. MS, Sandy is already pregnant, so why is she still hanging around? I heard she even pushed MS, Sandy on purpose to keep Mr. Hobart. What a vicious woman." I turned a deaf ear and walked toward them step by step. Hobart frowned when he saw me. "Ruby, what are you doing here?" I smiled. "MS, Sandy's birthday, how could I not come?" After saying that, I handed over the jewelry box. "The thing you wanted." Sandy, her eyes lit up as she reached out to take it, deliberately opening it in front of me. "Hobart, is this for me?" Hobart remained silent, giving me a complicated glance. Sandy coaxed. Help me put it on, will you? He stayed silent for 2 seconds, picked up the necklace, and his fingers circled around her neck. Sandy suddenly stood on tiptoe, wrapped her arms around his neck, and planted a firm kiss on his cheek with her red lips. Then looked at me challengingly. I remained silent. Suddenly, she stumbled and cried out, "Ah!" Hobart dashed over in one swift stride to steady her, then turned to glare at me. "What are you trying to do now?" I silently handed over the document folder. "Sign it." He was about to speak when Sandy suddenly clutched her stomach. "Ah, Hobart, my stomach hurts." Hobart panicked immediately, signed the document without even looking, then scooped up Sandy. "I'll take you to the hospital." I put away the agreement and turned to leave, but someone tripped me hard. I fell heavily to the ground, my forehead hitting a metal object on the floor. Warm blood trickled down my cheek. Hobart suddenly turned around, instinctively wanting to come and help me up. "Hobart, my stomach hurts so much. Take me to the hospital quickly." Sandy clutched him tightly, her voice trembling. He paused for a moment, then ultimately walked away holding her without looking back. I lay on the ground, my vision blurred by blood, surrounded by mocking gazes. No one reached out a hand. Gritting my teeth, I pushed myself up from the ground, only to find the wedding ring on my ring finger was gone. It had been loose all along, but I never noticed. Ignoring the stares, I limped out and hailed a taxi to the hospital. The driver was startled. "Miss, your head is bleeding." I wiped my face, my hand covered in bright red, but I smiled. "It's fine, I won't die," as the doctor bandaged my wound. His brow furrowed tightly. "Mrs. Colton, you're pregnant. How could you push yourself like this?" A news report suddenly interrupted the television broadcast. Breaking news: Colton family's CEO's wife faked a kidnapping, actually cheated, suspected of secretly going to the hospital for an abortion after becoming pregnant with another man's child. Everything went black before my eyes. Before I could process it, the door was violently kicked open. Hobart's mom burst in and slapped me across the face. "You wretched thing. You've completely shamed our Colton family." Staggering backward, before I could steady myself, I was seized by several men in black and dragged into the Colton family ancestral hall. "Kneel down," Hobart's mom shouted sternly. I struggled, my knees hitting the cold floor tiles with a heavy thud. Hobart's mom dialed the phone, her voice sharp. "Hobart, look what your wife has done. Now the whole city is laughing at our family." On the other end of the line, Hobart clearly panicked. "Mom, weren't you and Dad on vacation in Australia? How did you suddenly?" "What, can't we come back?" Hobart's mom sneered. "Look at the fine wife you married. You're too soft-hearted. Letting a woman walk all over you. She's cheating on you, and you still can't bring yourself to do anything about it." I looked up at the screen and roared, "Hobart, say something." It was clearly you, Ruby. He fell silent for a few seconds, his voice hoarse. "Endure it for now. I'll make it up to you when I get back." The ancestral hall in midsummer felt like a steamer. I knelt on the scorching ground, sweat mingling with the blood from my forehead as it dripped down. Suddenly, a sharp pain shot through my lower abdomen, and a warm liquid trickled down the inside of my thigh. My child, my child." I rushed to the door, pounding on it frantically. "Let me out, save my child." Hobart's mom's cold voice came from outside the door. "Didn't you say you got rid of it?" "What?" The bastard didn't flush out cleanly. My nails dug into the door crack, scratching bloody marks on the wooden panel. "This is Hobart's child. It's his. The only response was the sound of footsteps fading into the distance. I spent the whole night in a pool of blood. At dawn, the door of the ancestral hall finally opened. The man in black looked at me expressionlessly. "Madam, we'll take you to the hospital." On the operating table, I lay with my eyes open, feeling the life inside me slowly fading away. My phone vibrated. Hobart sent a message. "Ruby, I'm sorry, I've put you through so much. I'll explain everything to Mom later." My fingers trembled, and a tear rolled down my cheek. The day I received my divorce certificate, I dialed a number I hadn't touched in 5 years. The call connected, and the man's voice was low and laced with laughter. "Finally decided to look for me." A week later, Sandy attended the press conference for her new drama, prominently displaying her baby bump. She linked arms with Hobart and smiled sweetly at the cameras. "Thank you all for your blessings. After the baby is born, I'm going to develop my career in Hollywood." Under the dazzling flashlights, I slowly walked into the venue. The originally boisterous scene instantly fell silent. Hobart's face changed drastically. "Ruby, what are you doing here?" I calmly walked up to him and placed the divorce certificate in his hand. His pupils constricted, and he suddenly grabbed my wrist, lowering his voice. "Ruby, stop messing around. Didn't I tell you I'd compensate you well after this period?" At that moment, the main gate burst open, a Rolls-Royce pulled up, and the man inside stepped out, causing a stir throughout the crowd. "It's Cecil, the Edmund family's patriarch." Sandy's eyes lit up, and she quickly pushed me aside to greet him. "Uncle, what brings you here?" I stood still until Cecil's gaze fell upon me. He extended his arm toward me, and I naturally linked mine with his. Hobart rushed over, his voice trembling. "Ruby, are you crazy?" "His Sandy's uncle." Cecil glanced at Hobart and sneered. "Is this the kind of trash that dares to make my daughter suffer?" The entire room was filled with whispers. I looked at Hobart and said softly, "Forgot to introduce. This is my dad." Sandy turned pale instantly. The moment the car door closed, Hobart's shouts were completely shut out. I leaned back in the seat and finally let out a long, deep sigh of relief. "Ruby, long time no see." A deep, magnetic voice came from beside me, and I instinctively shifted a little further away. Adam's long fingers tapped idly on his knee, his perfectly tailored black suit accentuating his flawless physique and making his skin appear cool and pale. The tear mole at the corner of his eye was faintly visible, and his thin lips were pressed together, exuding an innate nobility. Had enough of the show. I glared at him, annoyed. He suddenly leaned in, bringing with him a faint scent of plum blossoms, and his fingers gently brushed against the wound on my forehead. "You're such a mess." "None of your business." I slapped his hand away, but he grabbed mine back. "Ruby, don't be so rude." My dad in the front seat snorted. If Adam hadn't called me, I wouldn't have known my precious daughter was living like this. Dad glared at me through the rearview mirror, a nouveau riche from a small family. Does he deserve to make my daughter suffer such grievances? I lowered my head, tears falling uncontrollably. "TSK. Adam suddenly pinched my cheek. "Why are you crying? You look hideous." "Oh." Adam let go. The Edmund family's old mansion was brightly lit. At dinner, Adam casually sat at the head of the table, slowly cutting his steak. I kicked his leather shoe. "Why aren't you leaving yet?" He elegantly took a sip of red wine. "Uncle Jiang asked me to stay. He wants me to take you out to clear your head." "You." I stood up in anger, but he pulled me back down to my seat. "Eat properly," he said, placing a spare rib in my bowl. "Why are you as thin as a monkey?" I lowered my head and shoveled rice, not daring to look at him. To be honest, I've always been a little afraid of Adam since I was a child. That winter, I saved his life, and after that, he often came to my house. Dad said that Adam was a true black lotus, gentle as jade on the surface, but ruthless in reality. When I insisted on marrying Hobart back then, his eyes were terrifyingly cold, and his face was as grim as my dad's. "You'll regret this," he said at the time. I felt like he was cursing me. And I was so angry I blurted out, "Someone as heartless and cruel as you deserves to die alone." Later, I heard he went to Southeast Asia and never came back. I never expected that with just one phone call, he and Dad would rush over. I secretly glanced up at him. 5 years had passed, and he had grown even more mature and composed. Every gesture exuded the aura of a man in power, showing no trace of his struggles in Southeast Asia. "What are you looking at?" He suddenly looked up, his deep eyes gazing directly into my heart. I hastily lowered my head, my heart skipping a beat. Inside the banquet hall, the air seemed to solidify. The reporters exchanged glances, their microphones uniformly pointed at Hobart. "Mr. Hobart, was that lady just now your wife? Truly the eldest daughter of the Edmund family?" Hobart stared intently in the direction Ruby had left, his fingers unconsciously tightening, almost crushing Sandy's wrist. "Ah!" Sandy cried out in pain, tears instantly welling up. "Hobart, you're hurting me." She leaned weakly against him, but in the instant she lowered her head, a hint of venom flashed in her eyes. Just then, her agent rushed in frantically, his face pale. "MS. Sandy, something's happened." Director Black sighed. Sandy immediately flashed her signature sweet smile at the camera. "Is there another new script for me?" The agent, trembling, handed over the phone. "The investor demands your immediate replacement, or they'll pull funding from the entire film." "What?" Sandy shrieked, her exquisite makeup instantly contorting. Reporters immediately swarmed, flashbulbs flickering wildly. "MS. Sandy, have you offended the investors? There are rumors that your resources were obtained through improper means. How do you respond?" Sandy's face turned pale, and she suddenly clutched her chest, rolled her eyes, and collapsed stiffly. In the hospital room, the smell of disinfectant was pungent. Sandy slowly regained consciousness, and upon seeing Hobart by the bedside, her eyes immediately welled up with tears. "Hobart, it must be Ruby who did this. I clearly remember that her father was an unremarkable-looking man when you got married. She resents me for taking your attention lately." So she sought out the Edmund family and deliberately had Cecil pretend to be her father to humiliate me. She reached out to grab Hobart's hand, but he coldly avoided it. Seeing that this trick didn't work, she immediately threw herself into his arms, her tears soaking his shirt. She deliberately set me up, to humiliate me. I don't want to live anymore. Hobart shoved her away. Enough, I'm going out first. You get some rest. He turned to his assistant and said coldly, go investigate. I want to know everything about Ruby. His heart sank. In all these years, he seemed to have never truly understood Ruby. In the office, the assistant knocked on the door. Mr. Hobart, quick, look at the news. Look at the news. He turned on the TV, and no matter which channel he picked, it was broadcasting news about him and Sandy. Just like when news about Ruby was everywhere, the TV was showing explosive footage. Sandy nestled in the arms of a white-haired old man, cooing, the child is yours, you have to take responsibility. The old man spoke in broken Mandarin, you little temptress, here's the money, get rid of the child. Sandy teared up, I don't want money, I love you so much. The old man lecherously kissed her and casually pinched her butt. Sandy giggled and playfully hit his chest. You're so annoying, I plan to find a cheap daddy for the child. The assistant handed over another health diagnosis report. Sandy never had depression at all. Hobart staggered back into his chair. Not long after, the assistant brought in a thick file, voice trembling. Mr. Hobart, this is all the information on your wife, Ms. Ruby. Hobart froze as he turned to the first page. His in-laws, who had attended the wedding banquet, turned out to be two actors from a film academy, and Cecil did indeed have a closely guarded only daughter. After Mrs. Edmund passed away, to protect his daughter, Cecil had her changed to her mother's surname and kept her hidden in private schools abroad, rarely allowing her to appear in public. In the photo, Ruby is wearing her school uniform, standing in front of the backdrop for the Edmund family's group annual meeting, with Cecil lovingly embracing her shoulders. Ms. Ruby is indeed the Edmund family's only daughter. The assistant wiped his brow. After Mrs. Edmund's death, Mr. Cecil protected his daughter fiercely. To marry you, Ms. Ruby. Go on. Hobart's voice was hoarse. She renounced 80% of her inheritance rights to the Edmund family's shares and ran away from home after a huge fight with Mr. Cecil. Mr. Cecil froze all her accounts. So she worked at a small company to support herself. The assistant handed over a photo, a surveillance screenshot of Ruby working at a coffee shop. Later, when you proposed to her, Mr. Cecil sent people to seize her and confine her at home. She went on a hunger strike in protest. And finally, the assistant hesitated, trailing off. Finally what? Finally, she knelt for 3 days and 3 nights at the Edmund family's old mansion before Mr. Cecil reluctantly agreed. The condition was, she had to live under an assumed name and not reveal her identity to anyone. Hobart's fingers trembled as he turned to the next page, revealing their wedding photo. A week before the wedding, Mr. Cecil had you thoroughly investigated, and he still wasn't satisfied. The investigator whispered, Ms. Ruby threatened to kill herself before Mr. Cecil agreed to hire actors to impersonate her parents so you two could get married. Hobart slammed the file shut, his chest heaving. So, the wife who had always been gentle and considerate in front of him had once given up so much for him. His face turned ashen, thinking about what he had done recently. Hobart slammed his fist on the table, shattering the glass instantly. Blood streamed down his palm, but he felt no pain. Over the next month, the Colton Group faced an unprecedented crisis. Stock prices plummeted, partners withdrew their investments, and calls from banks demanding payment came one after another. Hobart was overwhelmed with work every day, yet Ruby's image constantly flashed in his mind. After 30 sleepless days and nights, he barely managed to stabilize the company's situation. Returning to the empty villa, he suddenly realized Ruby's traces had been completely erased. Pushing open the door to the nursery, the sight of unopened baby supplies all over the room stung his eyes. Memories suddenly flooded back. That day, Ruby held up the pregnancy test, her eyes shining like stars. Hobart, we're going to be parents. She held his hand, hesitating to speak. Actually, I have something important to tell you. Looking back now, she must have wanted to confess her background at that time. Hobart stood in the kitchen and suddenly remembered the scene when Ruby cooked for the first time after they got married. She was flustered, stir-frying while watching a tablet, and ended up frantically hiding the charred ribs behind her back. He even teased her about her poor cooking skills. How could the daughter of the Edmund family need to cook for herself? Clearly, it was for him that she endured the fumes and learned to make those home-style dishes. But what did he do? To take care of Sandy's so-called depression, he repeatedly abandoned his pregnant wife. To protect Sandy's reputation, he readily believed those clumsy lies, causing her to lose their child. Smack. A loud slap landed on his own face. Hobart dialed Ruby's number with trembling hands, only to hear a cold busy signal. Once, twice, thrice, until the phone died and automatically shut off. A sudden, urgent knocking sound came from the door. Hobart trembled, his heart pounding. Had Ruby returned? Had she forgiven him? He practically stumbled to the door, yanking it open. Ruby, you finally. Outside, Sandy's makeup was smeared, her eyes swollen like walnuts. She clutched the doorframe tightly. Hobart, let me in. Those reporters are going to kill me. Hobart cast a cold glance behind her as a dozen reporters charged forward with cameras in hand. Get lost. His voice was icy. Sandy frantically pushed her way toward the door. Hobart, let me in first. You can't do this to me. Those videos are fake. Someone is trying to frame me. Hobart God pushed her out abruptly. Go find the child's real father. I don't want to see you. Ah, Sandy screamed as she tumbled down the steps. Her expensive dress covered in dust. Reporters immediately swarmed around her, flashbulbs going off frantically in her face. Suddenly, a middle-aged woman dripping with jewels rushed into the crowd. Bitch, I finally found you. She grabbed Sandy's hair. I wondered why that old man was always going on business trips every other day. Turns out he was coming to see you, you little vixen. Slap, a loud smack across the face. Sandy wasn't one to back down. Her sharp nails raked across the woman's face. Old hag, you're the one who can't keep her man in check. The two women wrestled, Sandy's designer bag torn to shreds. Cosmetics scattered everywhere. Suddenly, she clutched her stomach. Ah, my baby. The woman sneered and kicked her in the stomach. Bright red blood flowed from Sandy's legs, and she screamed before passing out. The next day, all the headlines featured photos of her being carried into an ambulance, covered in blood. Major brands issued statements terminating their contracts one after another, and the TV drama she was filming immediately replaced her, once a celebrated actress surrounded by stars. She had now become a rat scurrying across the street, despised by everyone. After returning to Edmund's family old mansion, I spent my days in a daze, doing nothing but eating and sleeping. When the family doctor came for a checkup, his frown was so deep it could crush a fly. Miss, your body needs proper care after a miscarriage. The doctor's words made my father smash 3 antique teacups on the spot. I should have broken that beast's legs. My dad was trembling with rage. Adam stood by the window, silent, only pulling out his phone to make a call. The next day, Colton's family's stock plummeted, and Sandy's endorsements were all cancelled, and she was indefinitely blacklisted. I had a vague feeling that all of this was related to Adam. Adam was always hanging around my house. That evening, I sat on the garden swing, lost in thought. A pair of gleaming black leather shoes appeared before me. Adam stood in front of me without me knowing when. The night breeze was cool, and he took off his suit jacket and draped it over my shoulders. Don't catch a cold. His voice was softer than the night breeze. I stiffened and didn't move. He leaned in too close, his warm breath caressing my ear. His slender fingers gently removed a fallen leaf from my hair, his movements as delicate as if he were handling a treasure. Ruby, Ruby, a heart-wrenching cry suddenly came from outside the gate. There were fewer bodyguards at night, and they couldn't stop Hobart. Hobart stumbled into the garden. He was emaciated, his eyes bloodshot. Ruby, I'm sorry. I know I was wrong. It was my fault. I shouldn't have made you bear all this. I didn't make a sound. Adam walked up to him. Hobart changed his expression. Ruby, who is he? Adam darted in front of me and threw a fierce punch. This punch is for Ruby. Another punch followed. This punch is for the unborn child. How dare you hurt her so badly? Hobart wiped the blood from his face and fell to his knees before me. Ruby, I know I was wrong. Please come home with me. I truly know I was wrong. I'll make it up to you. He clutched my leg, refusing to let go. Home, I sneered. What home? Hobart, you forgot. We're already divorced. You signed the agreement. His face drained of color. Ruby, you're just saying that out of anger. Right, I caressed my belly, where a child once was. My tears fell. You know what, actually, child, I couldn't bear to abort him at first. It was your mother. It was your Colton family who killed him with your own hands. I paused. Your mother locked me in the ancestral hall, left me under the scorching sun, and that's how I lost my child. Hobart was thunderstruck, collapsing to the ground. As the bodyguards dragged him away, he was still screaming my name. After that, he came to Edmund's house every day like a madman. Sometimes he knelt at the gate crying bitterly, other times he drunkenly forced his way in. Each time, he was beaten black and blue by the bodyguards, yet he stubbornly kept coming, until one day, the news broke that Hobart's mom was suddenly hospitalized with a cerebral infarction, and Hobart in the footage seemed to have aged 10 years overnight. Later, it was said that he spent his days drowning his sorrows in bars. Sandy, when he came to the door, a liquor bottle smashed hard against his head. Glass shards pierced his left eye, and he lost sight in one eye. Meanwhile, Sandy was imprisoned for intentional assault, and the Colton family conglomerate also declared bankruptcy. I began taking over my father's business. At the annual meeting, I stood under the spotlight delivering a speech with composure. In the front row, Adam gazed at me intently, his eyes filled with pride. As the speech ended, he immediately stood up and draped a coat over my shoulders. As I exited the venue, I caught a glimpse of a hunched figure standing in the shadows by the door. The person wore sunglasses, and their left eye socket was sunken. It was Hobart. He opened his mouth, but ultimately dared not utter a sound. "Don't look." Adam suddenly gripped my hand, so tightly it hurt. I chuckled and reached out to smooth his furrowed brow. "We're getting our marriage certificate tomorrow. Are you still afraid I'll run away?" Adam's expression softened slightly, but he still stubbornly held onto my fingers. A few days ago, Adam knelt in the garden and confessed his feelings to me for the first time. He said that when he learned I was married, he went to Southeast Asia and almost gave up his life amidst the hail of bullets. It wasn't until he received my call that he found a reason to live again. "Ruby," he pressed my hand to his chest, where a strong heartbeat resonated. "I will never let go of you again in this lifetime." I placed a kiss on his forehead, as the sunset glowed beautifully in the distance.